And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm always pleasantly surprised, Blake, whenever we get to June and I'm trying to come up with stuff to talk about, and we get nice little offhanded fun comments like the one we did from good friend Bert, Mr. Bret Bielema, who took a shot at Kirby. It never fails, man. We always have something to talk about.
Yeah, so in reference to what we'll talk about today, and for all those who missed it, Bret Bielema said that Kirby Smart and his staff tampered. So I am very interested to see and to talk to this about you with. Now, there's also something interesting in that. Bret Bielema, did you see the video I tagged you in from John Sports about him saying, I knew that this was coming and we had already been anticipating it before the end of the season, and he had already told me during the season I'm interested in hitting the portal. I mean, like, this isn't something that came out of left field like he was talking about.
Right. And I'll save my full take when we get to that segment. Part of me is like a little perplexed. He's like talking about how great the running back room is that he has. It sounds like he's not worried. He's just more so annoyed that, like, hey, how timely of this that he's on a plane to Georgia the second that he enters the transfer portal.
Well, the problem with that is that the internet lives forever, right?
Yep.
And the problem is when the internet lives forever, when you're in December and you said halfway through the season that you were anticipating that your lead running back was going to leave, and then now you're out here clamoring that someone's tampering. Joe, not everything's tampering. I mean, would you rather go to Georgia, Ohio State, Penn State, Alabama, or go to Illinois?
Well, I don't think he's going to get very many carries at Georgia. Like, I think that he's going to be pretty buried at Georgia. So it's not like he's leaving to go to a program where he's going to be the lead running back. I know that the Illinois room's kind of crowded, so I can understand his perspective of seeking a better opportunity to get on the field, but it's like, it's not like he's jumping in to be the lead back for Georgia in this situation.
We'll get to the segment in a minute. I just have a massive issue. Actually, you know what? Let's just get to it. To it now.
All right.
Bret Bielema, the head coach of Illinois, came out, Joe, and was in an interview and said that Georgia allegedly tampered with Josh McCray, the running back for Illinois. Now, in his exact quote, Bret Bielema said somehow Josh McCray found his way in the portal, and then 12 hours later, he was on a flight to Georgia. Don't know how that happened, but it is crazy. Just for a little bit of reference here, there was a video that was published in December when McCray entered the portal that Bret Bielema had stated that he knew all season, halfway through the season, that McCray told him that he was interested in entering the portal, and that we knew that this, and I'm quoting here, we knew this day was already happening. I tagged you in it just so we all had the reference here.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I got to be honest, not everything's tampering.
Okay, I understand, like, having that reference and having that perspective in this conversation. Like, yes, not everything is tampering, but at the same time, it doesn't mean it's not tampering. I know that's kind of like a shitty way of me putting it. We don't have the full context here. I don't even think Bret Bielema necessarily has the full context here. I think that he's speculating, just like we're going to be speculating on if it was or not.
But I would have to pause you there rudely. In the instance, then how can you come out with a video in December and say halfway through the season that he had already told Bielema that—
Wait, I'm confused by where the timeline of you saying that it was in December, because the tweet,
because that's at the end of the season where the video is clipped from. So John Sports, go ahead.
Wait, this says that his comments about McCray were the day after he entered the transfer portal, which was in the spring.
Okay, so it wasn't December.
Unless I'm missing something here.
Well, then the video makes no sense, because then his statements there were literally saying during the season we had talked about him going into the portal. So again, when is this even happening? How can you have let's say, okay, so it goes in the spring. Then how do you have a season conversation with him and quoting, anticipating the day coming. I'm not trying to stick up for Kirby here because I'm not saying that they don't tamper, because I think we all think that they do, and everybody does. At the same time, in this instance, how can you say that? How can Bret Bielema come out and say that, and then all of a sudden he wants to go out there and talk about tampering? Is it because he went to Georgia?
No, he's talking about the reference that he had, and you even read the quote, is that he's suddenly 12 hours later, he's on a plane flying to Georgia. There had to have been some sort of communication before that point for it to have rapidly picked up that much speed. Again, I get what you're saying, that like we can't just call every situation tampering. We can't have every single coach call every single player deciding to leave tampering. But at the same time, it's a little bit coincidental that he's suddenly already on his way to Georgia. He committed pretty quickly when he hopped in the portal.
I mean, Joe, I don't mean this in a wrong way, but a kid entered the portal today for baseball that nobody knew that was going into the portal because apparently there were some issues going on with the current state. And he's at an SEC school today, right now. And I talked to the staff where the kid's going, and they were like, we literally got his number in from the portal and called him. We had no clue he was going. He's going to be in Baton Rouge tonight. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude here. I'm just saying, like, there also comes a point in time where, like, 12 hours is, I know it's a short amount of time. It's also not that long of a time.
What I was trying to more so get at the beginning of this segment, we can sit here and debate the semantics of if it was tampering or not. We don't have the details. That's the problem. That's what I'm getting at here. And I think that Bret Bielema probably doesn't have the problem. I think that the bigger conversation point here is the direct accusation that's being thrown at Kirby Smart. And more importantly, is this the proper process for this to be handled? Like, how much better can we handle this? Is Bret Bielema wrong for just publicly stating and implying that there was tampering? Because that's what my main focus is with this. Is this an appropriate way to handle this?
I got to be honest. Joe, can I be real with you? Name an SEC head coach not named Lane Kiffin, because he's his own beast. But can you name a head coach in the SEC who's constantly calling out head coaches in the Big Ten? Because I legitimately have
Kiffin's
Matt
probably
Rule.
The only one.
I have Matt Rule and Bret Bielema doing it. Okay, sounds good. It's a little soft to me. It's a little soft in the sense of you're calling out Kirby for quote unquote tampering. And I literally do have a video of you saying that this day's coming. I think that coaches get in a situation where they have a player that they wanted on their roster, clearly. And instead of just saying that we lost him because we weren't getting him the reps or the kid wanted to go somewhere else, you're not putting it on me. Like, he doesn't want to take any blame for that, so he's going to put it on Kirby. I mean,
I don't like that implication that like he's making it an excuse here, because again, we don't know the full scope of this situation. If he thinks that there was tampering involved,
but here's
why would he just go and make that statement if he didn't think that there was some sort of foul play?
Because coaches never lie to make themselves look better.
Okay, that's a fair point.
I mean, like, what are we talking about here? I am not saying. Well, let me say this. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but Joe, with all due respect, it's not as if that the University of Georgia has been missing on running backs. Like, it's not as if that depth chart is a massive issue there. Like, they tamper.
Well, then why? Wait. But why go and get him? And why is he now listed as the second running back on their depth chart by most platforms?
Ask Kirby. But I think it's very foolish. I mean, and very foolish for you to call out a coach when, Joe, I got to be honest with you. How did Luke Altmaier get to Illinois?
Wait, hold on. That I don't like bringing up because
you can't do it. We did this to Kirby about a month ago, where he went out there with a statement and we was like, well, listen, you can't bitch about tampering and then you do the same thing. It's the same thing going out with Bielema.
But I find it very hard to believe. I don't know anything about Luke Altmaier being tampered with heading to Illinois. I did hear plenty that Luke Altmaier was being reached out to about
Tennessee.
entering the portal by SEC schools to go.
Right.
No,
Tennessee.
that was before the Nico stuff. That there was plenty of rumblings that Luke Altmaier was being reached out to. There was a lot.
Well,
that was something that was being talked about a lot for the first portal opening when it happened. So I don't think that it is. I don't think my whole point with this, Blake, is I don't think it's wrong if you think that if there was foul play involved with your roster. None of the big teams do this because they have the money to back up keeping guys.
But I also
they don't lose players.
But there just comes a point in time where when a recruit is missed and when a kid leaves your team, it's either tampering or money. That's not always the case. It literally is not always the case. I'm sorry, it's not. It legitimately, you want to be a backup at Illinois, or you want to be a backup at Georgia. You pick.
But my problem though, Blake, with this conversation is that like we don't know. The person who's going to know this information more is Bret Bielema.
But
the closest to the situation, unless Kirby chimes in and provides context that we need.
Like I stated in the beginning, though, how can you have a video that I tagged you in where this man said that, quote, I knew this conversation was having, and we were having this discussion during the season with the kid. And if you knew that then, how can you come out now and talk about tampering?
But is that not him, that video, is that not him pointing out that people were reaching out to him during the season? Is that not what that indication is? He's saying that he understood at the time that there was interest being had in a player on his roster.
One coach.
The school where he ended up at would make the most sense.
Fair. No, I think Bret, who also got in an incident with Shane Beamer during a bowl game, I got to be real. I think Bret does some things for clicks. I really do.
Come on, Blake.
I know that you love him, but there comes a point in time.
No, that has nothing to do with it.
You know what? Show me evidence then.
There is none.
Okay.
There's no evidence on either side.
Okay. At some point, we have to hold coaches accountable where you go out there and say tampering, you better bring it with it. You can't go out there and
he provided evidence. He provided a timeline. The evidence that he provided was a timeline, and the timing in which it happened was extremely suspicious. That is evidence.
That is not evidence.
He doesn't have a screenshot of a conversation as evidence. He doesn't have Josh McCray's phone. He doesn't have any of that stuff.
Okay, well then that's not evidence. A kid getting in the portal and then Joe, what if I called you right now and said, listen, buddy, I really need you to be here tomorrow in the state of Louisiana.
Oh, wait, hold on. Here's a really good example. 2 weeks ago had a company that called me and said, can you fly out to Dallas so that you can come meet everybody? You know what I said? No. I said no, because that was unreasonably quick for me to turn around and drop everything to fly out to Dallas.
Let me give you another situation.
Okay.
Last summer around this time, I got a phone call from you, and I had to be in New York within 24 hours.
It was a little bit longer than 24 hours.
Oh,
so you had it wasn't 12 hours. It wasn't 12 hours.
Do you know what I'm getting at?
We had a week to figure it out.
No, I didn't.
No, I remember because
I got called on a Tuesday and I left on a Thursday.
I think that timeline's slightly messed up.
No, it's not. No, it is not. Again, a timeline does not dictate tampering.
Okay. Here's my biggest part with this, Blake.
Okay.
I think and we don't know what the whole tampering process is going to be with the College Sports Commission. I agree with you. I don't think it's necessarily smart and appropriate for him to just drop this in a interview, like to just say it offhandedly, and for us to like we're sitting here doing right now is a waste of everybody's energy. We're speculating. We weren't a part of any of these conversations. We're doing exactly what Bret has created. I would like to see that instead of these public statements by him, by Matt Rule, as you mentioned, Boise State, Dirk Cutter has been a coach that brought up that Oregon was tampering with some of their players. Yes. Narduzzi. I would like to see that if coaches really feel like that there's something going on, to actually file some sort of official complaint to the CSC. And I think that as much as there should be consequences for tampering, I think there should be consequences for calling for tampering and there not being anything. You can't just wildly accuse somebody of doing something.
I fully agree with you there. Now, everybody said, in the chat about me going to New York, that's 48 hours. Well, the University of Georgia football recruiting has more money than Blake Ruffino.
Well,
that's all.
Report paid for your flight.
But if you remember, I had to come out of pocket and then they reimbursed me.
Okay. That's fair.
Okay. So let's not like Blake Ruffino does not have the money that Georgia football recruited. If you wanted to go get a kid, you can go get a kid. Joe, I'm really getting to a place in time, really. Take the coaches' names out of it. Stop complaining. Show me evidence. Because Joe, we've been doing this for 4 years. Like, at some point, can y'all start showing some evidence that this actually happened? Or here's the great thing. I got a better idea. College Football Commission is open, is it not?
Well, I don't think it's officially open. I think that's going to be
July the 1st.
Bit of a process.
Okay, July the 1st, correct? July the 1st is the start date.
I think it's the start date. It's the start date of the House case. I don't know if the College Sports Commission is going to be ready.
Oh no, kids with NIL deals. Just as a fair warning, we had to go through the. They had already sent it through NIL Go.
Yeah, so they have to send it in, but like I don't know if there's investigation.
Regardless of when it goes live. Okay, regardless of when it goes live. Let's say it goes live July the 1st. File an investigation suit. Stop talking about it and do what Wisconsin did yesterday. You know what I love about Wisconsin? Thank you for brother. They have
a lot more evidence. They actually have a lot more evidence to do that.
Good.
Wait. Bret can't file any report in this situation because it happened before the CSC.
Well, then stop bitching.
But see, this is the part that I don't agree with. Like, if you feel that there was wrongdoing and you got wronged,
all right,
why does he have to just shut up and take it?
Okay, since words don't mean anything, I can go on the internet right now and say somebody's cheating on their wife. I have no evidence.
You're not going to just wait, but that's not what Bret's doing. Bret's not just blindly making a statement. He didn't also directly state. He implied based off of his own assumptions.
Let's cut the bullshit. He's out here saying that they tampered. Let's cut the BS.
But he didn't directly state it because he doesn't have direct evidence. He's smart enough to know that he can't say Kirby Smart tampered with my player. He knows that would have got him in some.
You started this segment off saying that they tampered. You know exactly what he meant.
I know that we all knew what he meant, but my point is that you're not making that statement unless you feel like you have some sort of. There's clearly information that he's not sharing.
Okay, and all I am saying is, put your big boy pants on and do something about it. Because the only thing
he is doing something about it. What else is he supposed to do about this?
File a suit when it's time. I'm sorry, but Joe, can I tell you what I really think? Did you see the comments underneath that article from On3? Did you see the fans saying, I'm so tired of this shit? Like you have multiple people inside the comments saying, I'm so over this. I'm so over this. I'm so over this. You know what? I'm getting to a place where I got to be honest with you. I am too.
But like my only problem with this whole segment, I feel like you're going to great lengths to defend Kirby. Like that's where we don't have evidence we have less evidence to defend Kirby than we do to go after Bret in this situation, Bielema in this situation.
No, I don't. That's not true because I have a video of Bret saying something completely different literally months beforehand. I mean, I do. So you can say I don't have evidence, but I got a video that says that he thought something else was going on.
I don't know. I think that I don't know. I don't have much else to say.
I'm not gonna lie to you. This argument felt good because we hadn't done an argument. We didn't even argue yesterday.
I don't even know what we're arguing about.
Okay. All right. So when we come back, Joe, 2 defining games in the season. We'll talk about that. We'll do an Arkansas deep dive. But before we get to that, everybody do us a favor. Hit the like and share to all those groups on Facebook and to all those social media pages. Joe, coming up on 16,000 subs on YouTube. Do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. Joe, let's talk about our good friends. After we saw something on social media that was brought to our attention. We are getting pretty close to the season. I mean, look, 64 days? Actually, less than that, from week 0. If I'm not
I think it's 60. I think we're actually under 60 right now.
Well, for week 0, but week 1, I think, is 64 days or something like that. But regardless of that, Joe, as we are around 2 months away from the season kicking off here, what are the most 2 defining games this season? Like, so before the season, if you knew the outcomes already of these 2 games, you have a pretty good feel of how things are shaking up. What are the 2, or we can start off with your first one, but what are the 1 or 2 games that you feel like if I knew the outcome right now, I knew how this season would be defined?
So the inspiration for this was Joel Klatt put out his 10 games to shape the 2025 season. And we both agreed that there were some missing key pieces for this. He highlighted some big games like LSU versus Clemson was one of them. Ohio State, Michigan is always the incredibly easy one to talk about. Texas, Ohio State is going to have huge implications. But you and I texted about the one game that I think is ultimately the most important. I actually ended up writing down 4, but the one that has to be brought up that Joel missed on his top 10 list, November 15th, Texas at Georgia. I think for both of these squads, there's 2 completely different paths, and the timing of it is so impactful for their national championship runs. I think that as much as we can talk about a lot of these early season games, which his list was pretty heavy with them, everyone who knows college football and in the current version of it, where you can have a mulligan, you can go on to a conference championship game, you can then go on a run in the playoff, having late season momentum as your roster is maybe just getting back healthy is so important to winning a national title. Ohio State captured that momentum after they lost to Michigan at the very start of the playoff. This Texas-Georgia game, we should know where both these teams stand at this point. 2 completely new quarterbacks, a little bit of a reshaped defense with some elite players and huge playmakers. That game, to me, Blake, is going to really prove to us which of those 2 teams will be potentially in the national championship. I think both of those squads have the ability to get there.
Yeah, so listen, I do think, if I'm not mistaken, he was, I don't know if he put them in order, but he certainly.
They were ordered.
Well, it was by the week, was it not?
Oh, you're right. Yeah. It was
by the week.
We did. Yeah.
See, I wouldn't want to come out here and say Ohio State, Texas in week 1 is a massive one, but here's the problem that I have with that in some regard. Because you play your conference, you're inside your conference, I don't know how much those games necessarily matter because I think you still got to dictate through your conference. For example, and again, hypothetically, if Texas loses or Ohio State loses, they still have massive games inside their conference that they can win to be able to get to a playoff. I agree with you, and my number 1 is Texas versus Georgia. That was not on that list, but I think it sets up for the SEC where's their champion going to be? Is there someone that comes out of the blue? I do think that we believe that Texas defensively may be the best defense in the country, and that might be the defining game for them. Joe, they went over 2 against them last year. Now they got to go into Sanford Stadium with a first-time starting quarterback in Arch Manning. He's going to be almost 2/3 through the season before that happens. I do think I agree with you that Georgia-Texas could be the biggest game in reference to that. Now, being off of his list in that, I got to be honest with you, though. Georgia and Texas's schedules and weeks, along with Penn State and them going up against Oregon and Ohio State, for me, pick one. Like, pick either which one. I don't know, Joe, which one's more important, and I'm not going to actually come out here and say that either one is more important. I do think that Texas and Georgia and vice versa, Penn State versus Ohio State or Penn State versus Oregon, Joe, you're going to get a pretty good understanding of in the regular season how things shape out. Now, did we have a lot of chaos last year? Yes. But what did everything teach us? In all of the chaos of last year, and all of the chaos of other sports, men's basketball, baseball this past week, And football this past year, Joe, even though there was a shitload of craziness, Chalk still won. So I am taking the Big Ten. I am taking the SEC in the two premier games that will be in the season, and I should say three, but the three that will define the season of who the champion more than likely could be in the season. Joe, I'm not going to rank them, but I do think Georgia and Texas being off of that list by Joel was massively wrong. But I also think that Penn State kind of carries a little bit more weight in. Joe, what did they do against Oregon and Ohio State? Like, I literally have a page full of notes of saying to myself, I need to find out what happens there. I think you and I are a little higher on Penn State than most. Joe, what if they beat or lose to Oregon and Ohio State? Then it's either the same old, or they're actually for real this time. I look at that situation and say to myself, those have got to be the three games that have got to be on top. I couldn't do two, but those have to be the season-defining games so far. And listen, if you had to pick, those would be the three that I'm looking at.
I agree that the Penn State games have to be brought up. Those two Penn State games, Penn State's schedule, as we already did their preview, it's extremely favorable. There's a really clean path for them to go 10-2 if they lose both those ball games. But we're going to be having the conversation: are they a legitimate threat if they're 10-2 and the only two tough matchups they have, they end up dropping them? They just can't do that. They can't lose to Oregon at home, and they need to find a way to muster out a win on the road against Ohio State. If they go 11-1, it's still a tremendous season. They can still go on and win the Big Ten and so forth. Penn State has a lot of key games. I actually had another Texas game that I think is incredibly underrated that needs to be in the conversation.
Is it against Ohio State?
It's not actually the Ohio State game. I think that game is going to be important, but I think that I feel pretty confident that I think Texas wins that ball game. I actually think what could be the biggest wild card for affecting the season is October 4th, Texas at Florida, going into the Swamp. That is going to be their second, real, true, difficult test. One of the hardest road environments, as we talked about yesterday, in college football for anyone to show up and play in. They could be facing off with a scrappy Florida team that is shocking everybody to that point. There's a chance that game could be a total dud. There's a really good chance that ends up happening and Florida doesn't live up to the expectations that we're playing for them. But the implications for Billy Napier to try and prove himself, and most importantly, in a very hostile environment against a young budding team, could end up being a trap for Texas. That one really caught my attention, that if they lost, it would really open things up for who the best team in college football is.
Well, and here's another thing. If Florida does get some upsets, like against LSU, against Miami, or whoever, you could have a massive square off there earlier in the season. Would that be week 5, October the 4th? I think that's week 5.
Week 6, because this graphic says September 27th is USC Illinois, so it would be week 6.
All right, so week 6 could be. Look, for me with Florida, I think you and I are on the same page here. We think that they can do some dangerous things. They can do some good things. For me, with a game with Florida, I got to kind of see them do it first. I don't know if I can say it's a season-defining game in reference to them. Now, I'm going to throw one at you that is still in the SEC that it's kind of a hot take, but I kind of want to throw it out there, but it does revolve around Georgia. Ole Miss. Joe, I don't know what to make of Ole Miss at the current moment. Is Austin Simmons who we think he could be? Because if he is, and they're able to run the football a little bit better than they did a year ago, they don't have the injuries that they did at wide receiver. Joe, is this kid actually is he going to be better than what some believe that he's better than Jackson Dart? I don't know. Lane Kiffin has always had seasons where they fail maybe to some expectations and they respond with 10 wins. I don't know. I don't know if Ole Miss is in a little bit of a playoff sleeper here. I mean, Joe, they got to 10 wins 2 seasons ago. They got to 10 wins again this season. I know the 10th win was in a bowl game. They just keep rolling out 10 wins. And I do wonder if that game against Ole Miss in Georgia, even though it's in Sanford again, that's not really a defining, and I don't want to say cancellation or an out for Ole Miss, but if they beat them again, which I don't think that they will, but I still think the hype for that game will be so massive that you get in a situation, you have a playoff eliminator potentially for Ole Miss in that current situation. Because look, I don't know if Ole Miss can. Ole Miss can beat LSU. Like some of those tough games that they have early, they can win them. I don't know if Ole Miss loses to Florida again. I don't know if they can. I know it's hot take-ish, but man, it could be a situation when you're looking up and they're playing off against one another. Like, hey man, Ole Miss has got to win this game or they're out.
My problem is, and when we did the Ole Miss preview, I kind of pointed this out. I don't have a lot of high expectations or faith in Ole Miss and what they're going to do this year. I think that roster got cleared out by all those guys leaving and declaring for the NFL draft. He had his best shot with the most gifted roster he's probably going to have in his time at Ole Miss, or at least for the current moment.
The only problem,
and that was what it took at home to beat Georgia. I think on the road, if they get their asses kicked, that will be more defining. Is like, okay, this Ole Miss team is like the typical Lane Kiffin team. They're okay. They're going to beat most of the mediocre teams in the SEC, but they can't go toe-to-toe with any of the big dogs.
The problem with that, though, is that same situation happened, and they turned around with Jackson Dart in year one and won 10 and won 11 games. They lost Matt Corral. They lost their entire offensive line. They lost their running back. Quinshon Judkins, if we remember, was a freshman running back. They beat Jaden Daniels at home. I mean, like, there just comes a situation where I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but I also look back and say, well, the last time that happened and everybody kind of threw them to the wayside, it was that Georgia game that was defining for them. Remember, they did get beat, but they were hanging around with them in the first half. We'll see. That was a little hot take for me. Joe, I can't tell you something. I completely tossed Texas, Ohio State, and LSU Clemson because I still think the in-conference games for me, those teams have such massive games inside their conference to dictate them getting into the playoff. They are massive games. But let me throw this out there. I do think Texas and Ohio State is arguably the biggest game in the season. Can I tell you why?
Why?
Because if Ohio State wins, you know what the narrative is going to be come Monday morning. The Big Ten is really better than the SEC now. Because you would have 2 national titles. You would have Ohio State coming off of a national title, and then they beat Texas, who might be in the SEC championship game again. And if that ultimately happens, you know what the narrative is going to be. The SEC needs Texas to go into Columbus and win. Here's how I would frame it. Because I'm telling you right now, you and I have been in this game long enough to know what happens if Ohio State beats Texas in week 1. Oh, the Big Ten.
Right. It just feeds the narrative. It completely
feeds the narrative. The SEC has not needed a bigger win than they've needed a win with Texas going up to Ohio State and winning in a long time. They can say that it's not true. But if Texas goes into Ohio State and wins, let's say that they go 10-2 throughout the season, meaning Texas does. Ohio State and you're getting a conference equalizer in some regards. Who was better? I think because of how you're placing seeding in the playoff, Texas goes up there and wins. Then what?
Right. I think that overall, this one has to top the list of like the most important games for what you're talking about, where the battle is still close. We both understand, and I think everybody understands that the SEC and the Big Ten are still the top 2 conferences. I don't think that there's a separation between the two of them. But if Texas loses this game, there is not another shot until really the end of the season, until the college football playoff happens, to prove if the SEC can actually win a national title and to prove everybody wrong, because that's how the SEC is pitting themselves right now. It's them against everybody because everybody's doubting them. But if Ohio State loses this game and the SEC wins this ball game, it kind of gives them a little bit of a breather to go play their season and to build up who is going to represent the conference. They need Texas to get this win because it allows for them to bolster and build up a great resume with a little bit of a difficult schedule for a season that there are a lot of high hopes that they're unbelievably good. If they lose this game, they potentially could lose a representative for the college football playoff. The same won't be said for Ohio State because Ohio State can go 10-2 and still get in because the rest of their in-conference schedule is easier than what Texas has to see.
Right. Lose to Penn State. And then,
right.
And listen, God forbid LSU goes into Clemson and wins. The SEC, from a perception standpoint, needs it. Now, I don't think LSU Clemson is on top of that list. I think both teams both have to prove something.
Yeah.
But we'll see. The last thing for me here, listen, I've circled every Penn State game that matters. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, listen, Joe, do you think that Penn State's going to be preseason top 2, top 3, if not at preseason number 1?
Yeah, they probably will be. I think a lot of platforms will have them number 1.
All right. Well, if then that's the case, then they're going to have to finally beat a team that's ranked and a team that's in the top 5, like Oregon, Ohio State. That's the bottom line.
I agree with that. I got one more game I want to bring up before
let's
we move on to the next segment. So he put on Notre Dame, Texas A&M on here. Joel Klatt put Notre Dame, Texas A&M on here, and I completely disagree with that. I don't think that is Notre Dame's most important game, and nor do I think it's the top 10 season-defining game because I think that Texas A&M has different matchups. Like when they face off with Texas, that to me is more important to them. And I think that Notre Dame's biggest matchup is week 1. It is against Miami. Going and traveling to Miami and getting a chance against one of your, historically, you haven't had a chance to play them that often, one of your most hated rivals. Hated. This is rebuilding a rivalry. And most importantly, I'm rediscovering and being reminded in the comments of the video that we did that not that long ago previewing this specific game. Miami fans are very confident because the last time that Notre Dame traveled to Miami that they're going to kick their ass. They feel very confident that last time you guys showed up here, we beat your asses and the same thing is going to happen. Notre Dame needs this victory to show, hey, we're not going to back down to anybody in any situation. We are going to come out swinging in any situation that we have. And then on Miami side, you have a lot to prove. Carson Beck has a lot to prove. How is your elbow? If they need to start the season hot, in my opinion, they can still go on and get to the playoff, but they can't meander around at all in case they drop an unexpected game late like they did last year. I think that this is a circumstance for two teams that have winnable schedules that need to get a big defining win to put themselves firmly in the public eye as one of the best teams in the country. A big, confident, clear, declarative win will change a lot of perspectives if either side can get it done.
You don't think that a loss to Miami would be more justifiable on the road with a new quarterback in week 1? Aren't they facing off in week 1?
This is week 1. It's the Sunday of week 1.
First is like week 3. If A&M goes into South Bend and beats them.
But I'm not looking at it from that framing of like what's more or less justifiable. I'm looking at if you beat Miami, you're going to feel really good about yourself facing off with Texas A&M. And the same thing happens for Miami. If you beat Notre Dame after losing some guys and losing Cam Ward, you're going to feel really strong about it. That was what happened with Miami last year. They smoked Florida. They felt untouchable, and then the wheels fell off a little bit at the end. So I think it's the momentum aspect of this that I'm hinting on, not like how does it affect their resume.
That's interesting. I don't know how to really. I didn't even think about either one of those games as season defining because the truth is, from an A&M perspective, I don't know if I look at an A&M win or loss saying it's defining the season right now. Now, Miami, I think to your point, Joe, everybody's penciling in Clemson of winning the ACC. And I don't know if they should do that. I legitimately don't, I don't know if they still got to learn how to stop the run. I mean, like everybody's putting Clemson on the top pedestal. Now, can Clemson be the team that everybody thinks they can be? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe they 100% are, and then we find that out. I'm not throwing Miami out as a contender in the ACC. I'm not doing it yet. So I do think that you're right that there could be some validity there with Notre Dame and Miami. Because you get a big out-of-conference win against Notre Dame, then that carries a lot of weight. And same for Clemson, but yeah, I think it could be a massive one. All right. Want to move on to Arkansas here?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, Joe, we continue on our path of deep dives here. We go to the great state of Arkansas and to Fayetteville. Another season under Sam Pittman. You know, Joe, this time last year we were asking the question if Sam Pittman was going to get fired. Bobby Petrino would take over mid-season as an interim head coach. That didn't happen. They stayed with Sam Pittman, and now we look at Arkansas going into the season in 2025 with a lot of new players and faces. When you look at Arkansas going into the season of 2025, how do you see them?
They're a team that very specifically is defined by the performance of their quarterback and the performance of their offense. We've talked about a lot of teams in these previews, but I think that the rest of Arkansas's roster is fine. They had a lot of changes that they went through. Lost 2 of their 5 starters to the portal, 2 guys left. They have 3 returning defensive starters, but there's one key variable that is the same. Taylen Green, who is one of the most athletically gifted quarterbacks in the country, is being coached by one of the most creative offensive coordinators that has ignited some of the most. Do we have news?
No, sorry.
Okay, I thought that was on purpose. I really thought that you were going to say that there was some crazy big news. I was like, you've never interrupted me mid-sentence, so I was like, oh my God, did somebody just
I was
get
trying
fired?
To adjust, I was trying to
adjust. Bielema arrested.
Bret Bielema shows belly button on the timeline. I'm just kidding. Continue. Sorry. And that's funny because this is an Arkansas segment.
Right. My point that I was getting at here, the main variable that we know for certain is that Taylen Green showed us a lot of promise working with an offensive coordinator that has had a past of really tapping into the potential of some gifted quarterbacks, very specifically Lamar Jackson in winning his Heisman Trophy. Not trying to imply that I think Taylen Green is going to go on to win a Heisman Trophy, but second season in the offense, this could be a really big make or break year for Sam Pittman, for Bobby Petrino, and for Taylen Green for defining what their futures look like.
Oh, it definitely is a season definer. I mean, what are you doing if you go 6-6 with him again?
It's a failure in my eyes. 6-6.
I mean, I got to be honest with you, Joe. If they don't get to 8 or 9 wins, what are you doing?
They're gonna keep them, but like it's
what I'm saying is if you don't.
Oh yeah.
Like you got it. You got to get there. Now, here's a little something that me and you have kind of thrown at you a couple times. All these quarterback lists have been coming out of top quarterbacks in the SEC. I got to be real with you. I'm taking Taylen Green over some of these guys that they have above him probably 10 times out of 10. I think that there were a couple of things that went against him last year. There were some injuries at wide receiver. There's some injuries along the offensive line. Luke Haas got injured. And quite honestly, I mean, like, he was not the reason they lost to Oklahoma State. I mean, they had multiple fumbles. They fumbled a punt. Like, they should have never lost that game ever. Or no, they did win it. Didn't they win it, or did they lose it?
They lost.
Right, they did lose it. But to a team that won 3 or 4 games. I mean, like, completely just fumbled. I don't know if they did. I feel like that now that I'm thinking about it, I think they did lose. They did win that game. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm checking right now. Yeah, they did lose that game.
Right.
They were killing them, and then they had a bunch of stupid turnovers that it was like, oh my God. That was a frustrating game for me because I predicted that Arkansas was going to win and they blew it.
The Arkansas special. They did get a big win last year versus Tennessee, a playoff team that some of us probably thought shouldn't have been a playoff team. But regardless of that, Taylen Green last year completed 60% of his passes. Joe, that's got to come up. Like, it's got to come up. In that offense and what they want to do, it's got to be better. The problem I have is Joe, who is he going to throw the ball to? Like, I know that they went out and got 4 kids out of the portal. Like, they went and got Crutchfield. They went and got Omega Blake. They went and got Ishmael, Sissy. Joe, are any of those guys number ones? Are any of those guys number ones? I don't know. You lost a really good tight end in Luke Haas that went to Ole Miss. You're bringing in offensive line, which, by the way, I can't believe I say this under Sam Pittman, has been kind of a joke the last couple of years. They have not been good along the offensive line. And look, they blamed Cody Kennedy a couple of years ago, and it didn't change. They still were giving up a lot of sacks with a dude that can really move. I am interested to see what he looks like with Bobby Petrino in year 2. The problem I have is I don't know if he's got enough weapons around him. And by the way, they had to go in the portal and get 2 running backs who maybe they can run the football. Maybe they're better there. I don't know. But I do think Taylen Green as an athletic quarterback is a lot better than people are giving him credit for. So I think Bobby Petrino can do some good things. I really do. I think that they can be better and Green can be better under him in year 2. I worry about the things around him more than I worry about Taylen Green. Legitimately, I do. Go back and watch that A&M game. My man was getting pressured all over the place. I mean, like, Joe, he got hurt against LSU in a game where he had no time at all. I mean, he was under pressure all night. He's got to be better at anticipating pressure. But, Joe, I don't know if he's got the weapons. I don't think they got a receiver better than Armstrong than they had a year ago. And you lose arguably one of, if not the best tight end in the SEC in Luke Haas. Joe, I think that this is going to be a lot of the same in a lot of situations. They are going to have to prove to people that they can develop from within. And look, their roster is getting purged. Their roster got purged a year ago from the portal, and it got purged again this year. Joe, I feel like you're putting a Band-Aid on something that, man, I don't know if it's going to work yet or not.
Well, so like that, what you brought up here, that last part is important, that there's a lot of roster turnover. They're one of these teams that we've talked about that has just immense changes, just a lot of roster changes. It's tough to win. We talk about this all the time when you've got new starters on your offensive line, new starters on your defensive line. I look at this roster and it's hard for me to like really pinpoint who are the guys, the key returning starters that I'm like, okay, that guy I feel confident is going to be one of the top 5 player in the SEC at his position. Cameron Ball is a really good defensive lineman for them. Outside of that, I have a lot of questions. I don't know who. I would love to learn more about this team. I'm sure Arkansas fans are going to comment like, well, you don't know X, Y, or Z. You don't know this guy, that guy, or that guy. You're right. I don't. From the national perspective, when we have these conversations, if I am not familiar with a player, I'm not going to know enough. And that means that guy's typically not of a high enough of an impact compared to other guys in the conference. He might be a good player on your team, but if he is not nationally known, he does not stack up with the teams that they're facing off with on what appears to be a difficult schedule, which we will get to in a second. But I will say this, Blake, though.
It's brutal.
It's a tough schedule. I feel like the roster that I'm looking at now, going into last season, we had low expectations. I had higher expectations than you because I said, watch out for Taylen Green. And I was the only person out of anybody previewing any of the SEC teams saying Arkansas is going to be better than everyone thinks that they will be. And they ended up, proving that they could be capable because of Taylen Green. And I say that to say Taylen Green could be a defining factor again, as I led in this segment. This roster, is it drastically worse than last year? I would say it's basically the same.
I agree because Satang is not there. Joe, a kid in Tesla got drafted and they barely used him.
But that's my point, is that like Tesla gets drafted and his production was okay. He was a little bit overdrafted. Landon Jackson's the one player I go ahead and say like, hey, that kid was great. He was one of the best defensive linemen in the country last year. Losing him is going to be tough replacement. But like the rest of this team, the roster from last year, this year, it's not like there's some drastic drop off. So a second year with Taylen Green, while I'm really focusing on him, he is so dynamic as an athlete and as a playmaker that if he unlocks better decision making, that could be enough for them to win 7 games and outperform expectations.
I do agree that he is the ultimate X factor here from them offensively. I totally agree with you there. I mean, when you have a dude that's that athletic and can do some special things, I agree that he could be an X factor that no one really saw coming. Is Arkansas that team that no one wants to talk about? Little old Arkansas, but they just have an outright dude at quarterback. The problem that I have with them as a team, though, you brought this up, and I kind of wanted to focus in on it. Where are they going to get pressure from defensively? Joe, they have
Ballsy, the best guy that I know coming back.
Okay, well, they're secondary. I mean, Joe, they got obliterated in the portal, and they have a lot of it, quote unquote, experience, but not in-game experience. I mean, Joe, think of the quarterbacks that you got to go up against in the SEC. Think about them, and we'll get to their schedule in a minute. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier. You got to go up against Arch Manning. You got Marcel Reed. All these different teams that you're going up against with these really good quarterbacks. And, Joe, I don't know if their secondary is going to be able to hold up. I have no clue where they're getting pressure from. Now, I know that they want to send a lot of pressure and they want to do a lot of different things, and it's by committee. Joe, when they don't get there, they're getting abused. I thought that outside that Tennessee game, the biggest problem that they had – we were talking about that Oklahoma State game earlier. The quarterback that you hated, Bowman. I mean, down the stretch, he was making elite big throws against a secondary that was weak. I mean, and they were him. He was making those him. I don't know if they're better there, Joe. Look, I will tell you this: if they are an 7-5, 8-4 team, it's because Taylen Green beat somebody, maybe like Tennessee, and he goes off. Maybe by the grace of God, they can go 9-3 with that brutal schedule. That would be a surplus. I just don't. I can't look at this like you bring in Mike Washington as a running back. AJ Green comes back. Maybe they run the football and defensively they can do some things that none of us are anticipating. There's nothing on this sheet of paper when I look at it outside of Taylen Green that I'm like, oh, shit. Like, oh, shit. But here's the problem that I've always had with Arkansas. What is your expectations? Because if your expectations is for you to win 7, 8, 9 games, Joe, they're spending way too much money in other sports, not for football to be a mainstay. I'm sorry. It's
always been odd to me. There's a commitment in other sports, but it feels like
Joe, they have the biggest chicken importer and exporter in the world or in the United States, and they have Walmart. The Walmart logo is on their field. On their field. And I'm going to continue to say this. I don't care that Arkansas does not have a massive in-state recruiting process. Joe, you go out there and you mean to tell me that Walmart and Tyson Chicken can't spend with Nike? You're outside your box. You're outside. The Waltons paid for the Broncos franchise in cash. In cash.
Yeah, we forget about that.
And you're trying to sit here and tell me that they can't do bigger and better things. They can. The problem is under Sam Pittman and looking at them, there's nothing outside of Taylen Green that goes, that scares the shit out of me. Now, they did do something last year that I really like. They run the football and they try to play tough, and you got to respect it. But, Joe, when it came down to it, defensively, they could not make the plays. And because they're athletically, they couldn't do it. Chris Paul left. All of their dudes are leaving. They're not able to hold on to him, and I think it's an indictment on their head coach. And, Joe, I got to be honest with you. I think they're 6-6, 7-5. That's where I see them. Unless the X factor and asterisks in that statement is if Bobby Petrino can get Taylen Green to go off, then all bets are off for me.
So for reference here, I'm going to read the schedule like we always do.
Yes, let's go to schedule.
Versus Alabama A&M, week 1. Versus Arkansas State, week 2. Then at Ole Miss, at Memphis, versus Notre Dame. They get Notre Dame at home, bye week. At Tennessee, versus Texas A&M, versus Auburn, versus Mississippi State, at LSU, at Texas, versus Missouri. All of their difficult games, most of them, they're on the road. So I'm talking about SEC games. Ole Miss, Tennessee, LSU, Texas, they have to travel for. That is a non-starter for me that they're in this situation. We were naming 4 football games that they have to travel to. All of those are difficult environments against good teams. Maybe you steal Ole Miss because of what happened last year against Kentucky, but I would not put my chips in on that happening in week 3.
Oh, Joe,
This is a 6-win schedule at best. 7-win if it's everything goes really well.
I'm going to throw this your way. What is Tennessee with Joey Aguilar? I mean, do we really know? Could it be that one? I don't know. A&M. I mean, look, that's a massive rivalry game. A&M has shown that they can falter in moments. I mean, maybe there. I mean, that game is always close regardless. This year it's in Fayetteville, by the way. Auburn, I think that they can beat Auburn and Mississippi State, but you got at LSU that they're not. I don't think that they're winning there in November. I just don't. I don't think they win in Baton Rouge in November, and then they go to Texas. And Joe, I got to be real with you. A team that we haven't really talked about much, Missouri. If Bo Prabula did show some things at Penn State, like everybody's just throwing Bo Prabula out with the bathwater, and I'm like, what? Joe, I'm sorry.
This might be a losing record, actually, now that the more I look at it, because it's like,
by the way, we didn't even
what are the wins?
We didn't. That's where I'm trying to get at. Taylen Green against – like if they upset Notre Dame, I'm just throwing this out there. It's because Taylen Green went stupid. He's got to go – Joe, I don't want to say it like this because it's going to be misconstrued. He's got to go full Jaden Daniels. Like he's got to go full Jaden Daniels in the sense of, hey, you're not open, I'm gone. And at the end of the game, he beats Notre Dame, and you're like, shit, how did it happen? And you look up in the box score, and he's got 15 rushes for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. He threw for 250 and 2 touchdowns, and you're like, it was a Taylen Green show. That is going to have to be how they win. If that happens, Joe, for the rest of the season on any of these games in this schedule, all bets are off for me. He can't do it alone. He's not going to be able to do it alone. Joe, I don't know where are your 6 wins?
Well, okay, so you got your 2 gimme. You got 3 G5 opponents and 2 G5 and an FCS. Yeah, I think that they're going to beat them.
Okay, so that's 3. Mississippi State 4.
They would need, they're going to beat Mississippi State. They would need to steal Texas A&M at home. It's not it's not at Jerry World this year. Steal Auburn. And I don't know if you're going to get Tennessee on the road. They'd have to steal one of these difficult road games.
Because I don't know what Joey Aguilar is going to be honest with you.
Yeah. Still a road game at Tennessee, though.
Well, and Tennessee's going to be pissed off about what you did to them last year.
Yeah. Yeah. Teams always get their get back at some point.
Golly.
6 wins, 6-7 wins, best case scenario, but that's going to require, as you just said, you're going to need a couple of games in there where you're like, holy shit, Taylen Green might be one of the best players in the SEC.
Well, if he's doing that, we're going to be saying he could be one of the best players in the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just the SEC.
Yeah.
I don't know, man, but we're going to find out. We'll see y'all on Sunday. Y'all have a blessed night. Until then, Blake Ruffino, Joe DeLeone. Y'all have a good one. Peace.